Hi, welcome to this QuickBooks video. This is another in our series of using QuickBooks in the ag industry. And today we are looking at a kind of a unique way of tracking crop costs. So what we want is we want to track our income and expense in QuickBooks in such a way that we can easily get a report that shows us the performance of a certain crop that we planted in a certain year. You could also use this for fields. You could have a report that would show the results of field 5 versus field 6 versus field 7 and so forth. We're going to use crop today. It's completely flexible if you wanted to use it in another way, but let's take a look at this on a crop basis. So there's several steps to this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the customer center, and you'll see in my ag sample file here I have two customers. I have wheat and I have corn. And then underneath those, what you might think of as sub-customers, QuickBooks would call them jobs. I'll often use the term projects, are the years, the crop years. And that's what we're doing basically, is we are tracking, in this case, the corn that we planted in the year 2018, we're tracking that as one individual project. So this is the first step. Set up customers and set up what QuickBooks will call jobs underneath them for the year of that particular crop. The next step is we need to have items. So in order to make this work, and you'll see why here in just a little bit, we can't use accounts like we normally do. You know, the cost of water, the cost of labor, the cost of herbicides or pesticides, whatever. We have to have items for those particular expense lines. Now they may refer and post to the accounts where we want those expenses tracked, but we have to have an item to accomplish that, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. But let's take a look here. So I've got irrigation, labor, I've got the machine hire at harvest time, herbicides, fertilizers, tractor work, and so forth. Let's look at how these are set up. I'm going to double click on this water purchased item, and I just gave it a name that makes sense to me, water purchased. Left the description the same. I'm not too concerned about that. This is not something I'm selling to anybody. These pieces of information are for me only. There's really no rate for this. The account that I want to use is water expense, and I've selected that from the list on my chart of accounts. So whatever item I'm creating, I would choose the expense account where I wanted those dollar amounts to post. I'm not using these items on an invoice or to sell to a customer. I'm using these items in expense transactions. So I'm using expense accounts here. So let's take a look at how these items then get used throughout the year. Let me click on write checks here, and let me just go backwards and grab a check here out of the sample file. So here's a check that we wrote to Acme Farm Chemicals. Down here on the stub portion of the check where we're used to putting the expense account, you can see there's an expenses tab, which I have not used. It's 0. And there's an items tab. All I did was I used my fertilize item, which I created earlier, put in my cost of $900. There's a class column, in the sample file, because the sample file has multiple locations, and they use the class feature in order to track those locations. You may not have that, so this column may not show for you at all. But here's an important one, and that is the customer job column. So this particular check, this expense, was for the 2018-19 wheat crop. Okay, if it had been for the corn in 2018, that's what we would have put here, and that's critical to make this work. Usually billable will pop up with a check mark here. I uncheck that. It's not crucial, but billable, if there's a check mark there, just tells QuickBooks we want to add this to an invoice later, which of course in our case we don't. Now when we record the sale of the crop, you may be used to just going right to record deposits and creating the deposit to some income account, some crop income account. We don't want to do that. That's not going to make our report come out the way we want it to. Again, having to use items, and we can't use an item in a deposit form. but we can on a sales receipt. So I tell you what, to find a sales receipt, I'm going to go back to the customer center. I'm going to look at my corn customer. There's the sales receipt I created right there at the end of the year. If I double click on that, I'll pull that up. So this is all I've done. My customer was corn 2018. Corn is my item. The amount I got for the entire crop. That's all. This isn't going to anybody. I'm not printing this. I'm not giving it to anyone. It's for me only. Okay, so why are we doing all these things that are just for us only? I don't want to send that sales receipt and so forth, using items on expenses. Well, this is why. I'm going to go to the reports menu. I'm going to go to jobs, time, and mileage, job profitability detail. And QuickBooks pops up this little window that wants to know, well, what job is it that you want this report for. I'm going to pick our corn crop for 2018. Click OK, and there it is. So what I get then is I get the costs of each of those items that I created. So these lines are all items. That's why we had to create items for all the costs that we wanted to track. It gives me the revenue. Of course, the revenue is only one line, is going to be for the sale of the crop. And then it gives me a nice total at the bottom, so I can see if the crop was profitable or not. But this is, and this is the area here that I want to emphasize in this cost column, where the number of items that you have and what items you choose to set up are unique to your situation. You can have as many or as few as you like. It's just to give you information, helpful information, hopefully, as far as the performance of the last crop, and maybe influence some choices in the next year. So I hope you have found some information here that is useful. We have a couple more videos be coming up in this series, and thanks for watching.